seen that you and even have put into that is a great watch. I just was fascinated by how pow and bread can even put people to film or documentary such like Bread and Belonging. So just one question that was there in my mind, that how you got inspired from bread and how that uh, thing of creating a documentary came to your mind, and putting Kiran and even at the end how they are portrayed like 4 rupees of bread in today's generation. Even people can't get a chocolate of 4 rupees and selling the bread of 4 rupees. Like how these all came to your mind and inspired you to create such a great documentary.
Thank you for your feedback. And with regards to your questions, I guess there are two parts to it. One is in terms of how did I get inspired, or what got me to making the film. So a couple of things. One is I am from Goa, and I live for most part outside of Goa in the last few years or decade plus. So every time I came to Goa, I like eating bread like the next person, like everyone in Goa. And I would see that, the bakers, the ones who are making the bread, it's a different kind of a profile. The multi-generational traditional bakers are not baking anymore. There were quite a few bakeries around my home, and they're not, either they've shut or they have leased out, the ones who used to bake before, the families used to bake before. So I was very interested in this whole thing of, uh, why is that so? And that got me. And as I started going and meeting out, a lot of things kind of reveal themselves. One is that, there is a void. Everyone wants a better life, quote unquote. So a lot of the traditional bakers are leaving the trade. They're going, they're migrating. And so when there is migration, void is created. There is a void that is filled, and that's the story of migration all over the world. The demand for bread has not gone down. Everyone wants their bread, but the bakers are the not baking. So there is somebody else who's coming and filling the void. So that really got me interested. And as then there were so many aspects to that reveal themselves, in the sense that food is food is something that binds us, that gets us together. It's what we eat, it's our history, it's our geography. It gets us together. We sit on the table and we break bread. In that sense, it's a very community thing. It's a very private thing also. It's a very personal thing, personal identity, but it's also a public identity, where we eat in public along with people. But it also has the ability, or can be used to divide, because it is used as an identity marker. It can be used as an identity marker. So food has that aspect to it also. It can be used as quite a divisive tool in that sense. So, and the different kinds. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's very overt, but sometimes it's very subtle also. Because and the more I got talking, and I was talking to people, and like say a friend of mine who is from Kerala, she was telling me in Kozhikode, where she comes from, the very very traditional Kerala restaurants where they make the very traditional cuisine there. The chefs in the kitchen are not from Kerala. The ones who are actually making the food are from elsewhere. And then there was another somebody else, brought it up when he went to Rome. The pizza makers, the ones who make pizza on your street corners, at your railway station, outside your railway station, they're all Bangladeshis. The Bangladeshis who've gone there. So the demand, like I was saying, the demand for pizza has not gone down, but the pizza makers are different. So who does that belong to? Who does that food then belong to? Who can stake claim to that food? So these are the things that really came up. I didn't really go looking for it, but as I was making the film, these are the things that really came up. And I guess that's the beauty of making a documentary. You learn as you go. You have a particular thought in mind. I just started with a very basic thing of, I wanted to see why the traditional bakers are not baking anymore. In that sense, that was just like a one line thing thing that I said to, explore, and then so many other layers that just came out, And to answer your question about the 4 rupees, see, the thing is that, see, there were a lot of challenges for bakers for baking. You have, one is the labor challenges, finding labor, as you might have seen in the film, especially the first story where, they're struggling to find people to work. Then, the whole thing of firewood, they've been asking the government to give them first rights for auctioning of firewood to the forest department. Right now, the firewood comes from outside the state, and even things like GST, the flour, there is GST on branded flour and no GST on unbranded flour. So everyone buys the cheaper unbranded flour, and so that there is no, that means there is no quality control. When when it's unbranded, there is no, anything goes in that sense. So bakers find that, so there are a lot of challenges for the trade, but uh the thing is, these are the tangible challenges. There's also the intangible challenge of how we really look at, people who make with their hands, whether it's food or anything that is handmade. The bakers are the kind of bread they make, they're not considered artisanal. There is, right now we have this whole, the whole movement of artisanal bread. You go and pay 100 rupees or plus for a loaf of bread, like a handmade artisanal bread, but actually these are artisanal breads. So it's also how we as consumers look at bread. If we are willing to pay more, because it used to be 4 in the film, now it's 5, and when the government, and the government capped prices, yeah, because bread is seen as a essential food, and a world over the government caps prices on essential foods. so it's and there was a huge hue and cry, oh, price of bread is increased by 1 whole rupee, in that sense. But it's also how consumers look at artisan or people who make with their hands. And in a way, the film is also a tribute to making by hands. We don't look at artisans who make by hand. It's just how we look at them, really. I hope that answered your question. It was a really long answer, but I hope that kind of answered your question.
Thanks for your answer. Like, we, as a part of even an economic student, previous in our life, we used to get to know that bread is known to be an inferior good, like how people take it as a lower strata, in a lower strata. So there is one more question from our audience. He's Harsh from English honors from our college only. And he says that bread is an inseparable part of Goa. We all know that, but we saw that the bakers were not baking for some reason. How did this affect you as you have been living in Goa and to see that change in the scenario of bread in Goa? Like how you are personally affected?
Also sitting there, he might be visible.
Yeah, we have Harsh among us. So
Okay, see, in the sense, actually, this is something that, the stories, the kind of stories of how a place changes is something that really interests me. I'd earlier made a short film about the traditional, the fishing community in Goa. I spotlighted a particular village. And again, everyone wants fish when they come to Goa, but other fishing community going out to fish anymore, because there is this whole thing of whose space is the beach. Everyone wants to have their beach shacks and sit on the beach, but it's also traditionally been the space of the boats, the traditional boats. They come, and they oar the oar boats, and they use the beach to keep their boats. So for them, is it lucrative enough to go out to see as to the waters? So this kind of stories really interest me. Maybe I look at it from a because I also have lived outside the state, and I come and go. So maybe I think, and I, it gives me a kind of a perspective of a little bit of an insider outsider, in the sense that, so I look at it from a slightly, different point of view. I'm interested to know why this happens and what does this mean. Because see, it's very nice to nostalgia is good, and I'm a big fan of nostalgia, but I like to examine this nostalgia, because we are at this point because there is a huge interest in bread. You have, food bloggers writing a lot about it. You'll see on Instagram, you'll see short films, articles, film, for example. So for me, it's that, there is so much nostalgia around certain things, occupational trades, but what next, what after the nostalgia, what is and how does this affect a place? How do we look at things that are fast changing, so these are the sorry, things that interest me. So I hope
Thanks so
your question.
Oh, last question. I believe I had one more question. I had this question that what was the main reason for the migrants to move from places? Was it the fall in demand or the decline in the wage system? Like, was it the fall in the demand of the bread that forced the migrants to move from places to places and fill the void, or was it the wage system, or the price that the bread was for 4 rupees? So,
No, it's not about the price. So it's like, one of the bakers I was talking to, he told me, the way Dubai is for Goans, and there is a substantial, population of Goans who are in the Middle East, post the oil boom of the Middle East. But so yeah, coming back to what he said the way Dubai is for Goans, that way Goa is for us. So and there are people who are from the neighboring Karnataka, a lot of them from the bordering districts of Karnataka, which is like a few hours from Goa. So it's basically for a better life, everyone wants a better life, and that's what, you migrate, you move out of home for a better life. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to move from, people around you, your own people, so that is it. And I hope that, the film then gives and I think that's what documentary films also do. It gives you a window into the lives of people who you might not necessarily interact with on an everyday basis, so it's they just want to go and better their life. That's it. It's a simple.
here we come to an end of the amazing documentary screening, ma'am, and an interactive session with you too. And we are pleased to have your presence and also for enlightening the annual fest of our English Literary Association of our college. A warm vote of thanks to Kriti Film Club members and the members for their time and devotion and being a part of our event. Thank you, ma'am, for your presence, for joining us online.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for this nice exchange also of a few thoughts after the film. Sorry, I've just got a bit of a cough, but thank you, and keep watching more films.
So I just want, I think your film needs to be watched more and more. And I feel every time I watch it, I feel there's so much conversation, and I know that there was a good group of people watching it. And they could have stayed if we had started in time, perhaps. Sorry about that. But I think this film needs a lot of conversation because it touches on the cultural, the nostalgic, the economics, the migration, and the sense of self. I mean, when that man said, "I'm going back to the UK to be with my sons, and if I get a good income, I'll return and perhaps start Toddy Bread again." I mean, he didn't say it, but that's what he really meant. It just makes you realize what home means, and I think you've named the film very beautifully as Bread and Belonging. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me and my film for your screening. So thanks.
Bye.
Yeah, bye for now. Bye everyone. Yeah.